from Companion and the Safe Word. What is your role in the play?
I am actually in Safe Word, and I get to play the Dom.
Ooh.
Yes, very exciting.
Exactly. And did you have to do any external research for your part?
Well, I am not a dominatrix myself, and I don't really have experience with dominatricism. So I did actually. I talked to a friend who is, an acquaintance, I guess, who is a dominatrix, and she gave me a few little, encouraging words. And the internet is a very vast resource that I accessed, and so I just kind of talked to people who, are in the BDSM community and had kind of some pointers and tips for me, but really. I'm kind of going from,
Definitely from the heart. From the heart, it is this. So, how do you relate to your character?
Well, I don't want to give too much away because there's like kind of a twist in the end. And so at first when I was offered the role, I was like, well, this is going to be interesting because this is not me. Mm-hmm. And when I started to dig into the character, I realized that she is so multidimensional, and we all are. We all show one face to the world, and we have secrets, and we have second lives, and we have secret desires. And so those are the ways that I sort of felt like I could connect to her, and have helped to. It's really helped for me to bring her to life.
Oh wow, that is interesting there. And has this play affected your view on the BDSM and fetish community?
Yeah, I mean, through my research, I've really learned a lot. And there's. I really didn't realize how big the community was, and it is, and it's really interesting. And it's I think that talking about sex, and it's not even about sex, but just talking about our own desires and being more open about what we want and communicating who we really are and what we really desire. I think that's so important, not just like behind closed doors, but out in our lives as well.
Oh wow, that is kind of interesting there. It's like, have you seen this like different compared to other roles you've done in the past there? Is this more challenging?
Well, definitely, because most of the operas that I perform in are old. And so they've been done 1,000 times, and most directors choose to stage most of those operas similarly again and again. And so you have a lot of reference points. You can go watch old recordings or watch old
that's
videos.
Right.
But this is a newer opera, so it has been performed before, but there's not a lot out there. And so
this is more your own spin on everything. So it's kind of nice there because then you can project it in textile. Wow. Anything else you let our audience know about the play and everything?
Well, we're going to be here at Fringe for the next 2 weeks, and I think you should definitely come see it because I have so enjoyed the experience, and I think it's just a great piece, and you're going to love it.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your time there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And go for it.
Okay. Hi, and you are?
I'm Eric Pinder. I'm the director of these two pieces, The Companion and Safe Word.
And tell us a little bit about your role in the play.
So I found out about these pieces and wanted to bring opera to Fringe, and I thought these were perfect because the subject matter is something that you don't usually think of in opera, even though, really all opera is about sex. It's just, when Mozart has that music, everyone just thinks how pretty it is, but Don Giovanni isn't the nicest person, he is raping people, let's face it, so it's the music handles it delicately, and this is not about that at all. This is definitely...
Keep talking.
Did I have a stroke? I know I'm nervous, but yeah.
Your energy is so high, you knocked off the lights
there.
Exactly,
I'm so excited about this.
Yes.
But yeah, so I read about these pieces and I thought this would be a great fit for the Fringe. And so I am director in residence at Opera Orlando and been looking for something for Fringe. Fortunately, we survived the lottery, which is very difficult.
Extremely.
And got in and got to do this show in a great venue. So I'm excited because opening night, and I've lived with this now for 5-6 months, so I can't wait for other people to experience these pieces.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, I was super excited. That's why I'm like, I have to interview, get you on my podcast, get that going, because it's sex, opera, BDSM community, it's all.
Yeah, well, it is, people, and this is the thing, people think opera is just some sort of boring, art in stasis, and it's not. You do hear a lot of the same repertoire, but there are more and more new works being done, and really challenging, interesting works. And I thought this was perfect to try to get people from Fringe who are really, Fringe people, the people that go and patronize the Fringe are so dedicated and want new experiences and something that they've never seen before, because they've seen a lot in this course of the Fringe. There's so many great things. So they're always looking for something completely new and different. And I thought, this is perfect. You know, a dominatrix opera. She sings fuck. You know, I mean, there's BDSM, of course, as well, and there's a really interesting take that I just sadly can't share with everyone.
Right.
But
no, they have to come and see it.
Spoiler, yeah. No
exactly,
spoilers.
no
You gotta
spoiler.
come.
And had you do any external research for this play?
Yes, actually, I reached out to two different dominatrici, I guess. So I reached out to two different people, and I got a lot of interesting feedback on things. And then the more I looked at the piece, the more I thought, oh, I didn't really need to know all this stuff. And that's part of the switch and the plot twist that you find out later.
And then how has this play affected your view on the BDSM and fetish community?
You know, I'm not shy or prudish or vanilla, but I've never been into BDSM. And so it was very interesting to me to find people so dedicated to it, and people that really loved it as an art form, like I love opera as an art form, and that there was a big connection that way. And I think that was the most pleasant thing out of it all. But it was really interesting learning, and I did go to a rope tying class. That's a fun story too. I was supposed to go to it, and then we went to brunch beforehand, and I had too many mimosas. So I was like, I don't want to go smell like alcohol. I need some bread. But you know, fortunately, I had some friends there that were like, "Oh, you're drunk," and I'm like, I'm not. Yes, I was drunk. Right. But yeah, so I stood and sat and watched for a long time. But in this, we're using restraints with Velcro, so because it's much quicker, and the music plot demands it.
Definitely. Any final thoughts for our audience?
I just hope people come and enjoy this and enjoy what I love about opera is how the music informs the drama and how the emotions are present in the music. And often, sometimes the music will tell you things the characters are not saying. It tells you the hidden things that they've kept. So it's a very powerful art form, and I'm glad that there's a completely new work and new works being done. And I'm especially proud of these artists. They've done a great job, and I'm excited to see this open tonight.
Perfect. Thank you, Edward.
Thank you so much.
Time.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Do I just hold it, or you can just put it right there, whatever you want?
Cool.
Whichever's easiest for you. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
clip
it's got
on.
a clip. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She clip.
Cool.
So, hi, and what is your role with the play?
Yeah, so my name is Dennis Ooze. I'm the music director for this production of Safe Word and Companion from Three Way. And I'm one of the regular music staff members at Opera Orlando.
Oh, cool. And so, music staff members, explain more.
Yeah. So
and Opera Orlando, sorry.
Oh, no worries. No, basically the music staff is responsible for the preparation of the singers and essentially getting all of our production ready for how it's going to coordinate with the staging, with the orchestra. In this case, for this production, I'll be accompanying myself on piano, but it essentially falls on us to make sure the singers know where they are, that we're all on the same page, and have a cohesive product musically to present.
Wow. Was it interesting putting the BDSM lifestyle into an opera?
Certainly. I think the biggest challenge, particularly with this piece, the composer, he goes between episodes where he'll have kind of standalone arias or songs, which oftentimes are more reminiscent of musical theater. There's a lot of Sondheim and things like that. But in between, where the actual, where there's actual progression of the storyline, the challenge is trying to recreate the pacing musically to make it feel as real as possible, something that is convincing for the audience insofar as what would be happening in these scenarios. So that's been the big challenge in doing this piece. It's been very interesting, but to say the least. But it's very difficult to do that in a way that doesn't sound contrived or forced.
Interesting there. And did you have to do a lot of external research on the BDSM fetish community?
Well, I did some of my own reading, and of course we've had some of our run-out events, which have been, in conjunction with other organizations germane to that community, and just kind of understanding, what are they thinking, what are they, what's that perspective, what's normal for that setting, because it's easy to do, the Hollywood version,
right,
or the pop culture version of this, and in this piece, from my understanding, the composer himself did quite a bit of research himself. So you have to kind of respect, what is his sense of this dramatic universe, and how can we make that realistic?
Right. And has this changed your views on the BDSM and fetish community?
Certainly. I think the amount of thoughtfulness that they have The amount of it seems a very accepting community, and there's a lot of creative figures also in the community. So we have some overlap between our artistic world and that community. So it's been kind of a very enlightening experience.
Awesome. Any final thoughts you would like to leave with our audience to see about the play?
Yeah, certainly. I think this is going to be a great opportunity to hear a very new piece, something that is, representative of the developments that are happening today in opera, particularly in American opera. And an emphasis on more theatrical realism, dramatic realism, things that people can relate to in the operatic context. And musically, yes, there are parts of it that are very far out there, and I invite everybody to have an open mind toward the more difficult sections of the music, but also to just enjoy. It's a very beautiful piece, and there's a great deal of truth in it, I think. So
fabulous. We're looking forward to it. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for your time.
Sure.
I play Joe. He's an android, which is the future of dating. He's basically an android lover to Maya, your modern, prototypical taking on the world who doesn't have time for actual love life. So she, is doing what probably people are going to be doing in the future who are very busy. They're going to get their rocks off with their own custom-made companions.
Yes, and it's for our audience member, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of like odd because this is, how tall are you?
I'm a lot of man, I'm 6'5".
6'5"?
Yeah.
Dark chocolate yummy.
Yeah, that's the model, actually.
That is such the model. Okay, so I'm sorry, I had to say this, audience. Come on. It's like everyone else has been, your typical kind of like, please, wow, yeah. And you're the sex bot. Okay. As always, Angelico's on the deep end.
No, listen, it's fine.
So, how do you relate to your character?
That's a wonderful question. As I've been digging into him, I see the simplicities of, I see our commonalities, really. In a general sense, I see how simplistic people make their relationships and how dangerous they do in doing so, where they basically, Joe is sort of the embodiment of our narratives on our partners. And I think it's how a lot of people crash in relationships. Like, we go into relationships and we put our own stamp, our own script on another person who has a history, who has a background, and we're really not ready for that. Right. And we're not patient with that. And that goes into the whole love thing. You have to be patient, you have to be kind, you have to, go on the journey. And a lot of us really don't. We just want a customized version of our vision.
Right.
And if it doesn't work out, we break down and we forget that, in human relationships at least, there's history there. And the beauty of it, the real harvest in a good relationship is actually taking the adventure to really just get to know one another and to forgive one another a little bit and to humble yourself before each other. It goes into all of that, and it's hard to do that with a robot. But interestingly enough, in this particular performance, I don't want to give too much away. We venture along, and I will, I won't say if we get there, but we venture along into that direction, and it's a wonderful climax.
Interesting. And the robot does sing opera?
Yes, he does. Well, he has to. That was the requirement for the job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and is this your first role in a fetish scene?
It's funny. I'm not actually. My particular production is not as risque as Safe Word. We're more the PG-13.
Okay.
There are words and there are things that are said, and you can tell it's a very adult subject. But it's really kind of hard to do that with a robot, But I'm sure some nerd somewhere will figure that out.
Yeah, we've learned a lot from Big Bang Theory, what they've created. And had you do any external research for your role, especially like a sex bug? Is there any research?
It's interesting. Of course, I looked at, I remember data from the Star Trek series. And, there are other, you look at mimes and things like that, and just to really get a sense of your body. That's the technical work. From the very aesthetic point of view. You know, in a strange sense, I looked at Joe like I look at, you know, like I look at black men, as we are. You know, there's an argument, you know, I've had with friends where, you know, I often say, I think the most fetishized body in society is the black male body. And so we kind of put our own narratives on, because I've been that guy, you know, and doing that I discovered I've been Maya to others, you know. Like I used to travel a lot. I was in a circus at one point, and you know, I dated women from other countries, and I noticed my own Americanism, if you will, when I would deal with them. And it was something I was like, wow, oh my goodness, I put this interesting narrative on them. Something I grew out of, but those were the things I could dig into and really see with Joe. And how, you know, it's funny how we just do this with each other. We just have these assumptions and narratives and our fetishes, and this is what you're about, you know, and then you find out, oh my goodness, you're not, and you're actually a whole person. You're something else, and I have to be humble and willing enough to really go with that.
Wow, you were the perfect Joe there. And has this play affected your view on the BDSM and fetish community?
Well, you know, I'm not even really that familiar with that community. I mean, I know of some people who are into it, and actually I met a wonderful young lady who's an extraordinary singer out here in the Orlando area, Amanda Millar. And, you know, that's one of the things she's into, and she was explaining certain things about it, and I found it interesting because I know, you know, I mean, I don't want to, you know, I consider myself pretty open. I don't want to just go, oh, bad, you know, because I don't know. I don't know what it is, you know. And you know, the way she explained it, it was rather interesting. It's not really my thing, you know. I'm to each his own type of person. You know, whatever gets you off, that's your thing, you know. But it's interesting to see it has much more colors to it than it is portrayed in popular media.
Correct there. Awesome. Any final thoughts and words for our audience members?
Yes, I want our audience members to sit back and relax, be open, and the show is much more than meets the eye. You're going to really enjoy it. It really is about human relations and really how deep we are as people and robots.
Absolutely. That's why I kind of like chased them down so I could get this interview. So, sorry.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Samantha Barnes-Daniel, and I play Maya in The Companion with Opera Orlando.
And how can you relate to your character?
In that I'm like the opposite of her. So I like have 2 kids and a husband, and I've been in a relationship for 10 years, so I never did technology in a relationship like ever. So it was cool to do something completely different than me. That's kind of how I relate to her, by just being the opposite of her. So yeah.
And did you do any external research and try
well, I was looking, I like looked up, you know, like sex androids, which are a real thing nowadays. Like they actually exist, and maybe not to the complexity of Joe, the character in the show, but they exist. So we're probably headed in that direction, and it's kind of the idea of losing your humanity in a relationship, I think, is the whole point of that entire show. So yeah.
Right. But since her role wasn't really with the BDSM and fetish,
no, it was not.
Yeah, that's what it really surprised us. It was 2 parts.
Yeah.
So, but it was fabulous. All the singing and the opera and the relationships there. Wow. What questions do I ask? Because it's different. What do you think? What questions? Because I had questions for like the BDSM and fetish.
So
and
that's actually 2 parts of a 3-part opera.
Okay.
So it's 3 one-act operas, and the BDSM one is just the second one. We didn't do the third one, obviously.
Right.
So no BDSM in mine.
So, what have you learned with your character and dynamics in the relationship with the robot?
Well, I just think it's such a good mirror for life, right? So that like technology teaches us to be more human, which I don't think always happens nowadays, but that's sort of the lesson she learns, is that she gets turned on her head. She wants this perfect man, and he's, in the end, the perfect man is the imperfect man, right? That's the moral of the story. So you have to deal with the bad to get the good. And so yeah, it's a good lesson.
Awesome. Well, do you have any leave-in remarks for our audience members, to our listeners?
Come see it. It's cool. It's opera. It's different. It's certainly different opera.
Yes.
I've never sung an opera like this before, both musically and contextually. Like, it's completely different than anything I've done. So come see it. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Great show.
Thanks.
Bye. All right. Hi there. And your name and then your role in the Companion to Safe Word.
Sure. My name is Jacob Pence. My role was the client in Safe Word, and then in Companion I was Dax, the technician.
The technician. And how long have you been properly trained?
I started singing or studying opera when I was a junior in high school, so this was circa 2001, anyhow. And I've basically been singing ever since. So I have studied opera, at least I studied as a music performer with a classical background in both my undergraduate and graduate school experiences, and then I've been a young artist with a couple of opera companies, like Indianapolis Opera, and I've sung as well as singing some small roles in other companies, basically in the Midwest, and then, actually some here in Florida as well. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And did you have to do any external research for both your roles?
I was a little familiar with the work prior to accepting the role because it had come to my attention last year after it came across the desk of a supervisor of mine at Indianapolis Opera. I was working in the offices as a side job, and we discussed it a little bit because it had come to his attention. So I was familiar with the outline of the work and basically the bare bones of the plot, but not all the idiosyncrasies. So it was nice to be able to get a little bit more familiar with the show as we went. But I kind of had a little bit of an inkling of what I was walking into. So.
Is this your first role in a fetish?
Probably. This is definitely my first Fringe at Orlando, and first Fringe festival. Is you get kind of used to doing bad guys and or kind of oddball, creepy kind of roles in opera. More the bad guys though, just because the baritone voice, which is what I am, tends to end up sounding rather gravelly or growly, as it probably does right now. And it's ideal for villains and those less friendly types on stage. So you get to be a dramatic impetus in so many ways, just because you get on stage and you growl, so basically a lot. So it first time fetish, but not in an off-putting way in any way means. So I mean, I can think of another experience where I dressed up as Elvis, which is more off-putting. But anyhow, I don't think that qualifies as a fetish. But
it could be for some people. Yes,
depends.
definitely at that point. Yeah, because after talking with Joe the robot, we're like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Right.
And has this, how has this play affected your view with the BDSM and fetish community?
I think that there is a lot of room for exploration within the binary community of basically the fetish community and I mean this is a belabored point, but also the LGBTQ community as well, just because there's obviously with the amount of press coverage and things going on nationally that are with rights, basically marriage equality, and basically those issues. I think that there are a lot of the folks who are of that binary persuasion who are probably familiar with the movements, but perhaps have not had an opportunity to really be either exposed to it on directly or through art. And I think that the great thing about Fringe is that it allows a very welcoming, but also an exciting platform for which populations on both sides, can come and see, oh, this is what this is about. Because, I mean, I think it's just a lack of information serves no one. And I think this is, if nothing else, this is a nice way to bridge the gap and get the conversation started. Okay, so so you're a dominatrix. What is that? Okay, you're into BDSM. What does that specifically mean? Because it's like flavors of ice cream. I mean, some vanilla is vanilla bean, some's French vanilla, some vanilla is Tahitian vanilla. And it's just realizing, oh, okay, they're a Tahitian vanilla. That's what they like, that flavor of ice cream. So.
Cool. Any final thoughts and words for our audience member?
Please come and see us, and please feel free to obviously talk to us, but also if you do come and see us free, please talk to some of the other people here in the audiences of the shows you're attending or the events. There's a lot of great information available on this BDSM, and honestly, a lot of nice people here. So if you have questions, if you want to learn more, or if you just want to see what Fringe is about, it's a great event, and it's very welcoming. So don't feel alienated. Don't feel uncomfortable. Just put yourself out there and give it a shot. And, come and see us.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Great show.
Thank
Loved
you.
it.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, awesome.